Cheers, guys. Epix 911, welcome to the Elitist Geek VR news for Saturday, November 26th, 2016. Let's jump right into VR, guys. Start with the usual preamble. Got a question that I want to throw out for those of you who have motion sickness, and I apologize for the lateness of this video. It has literally been 5 hours of just literally gong show, everything going wrong that could go wrong. We're finally there, I hope, if you're seeing this. Anyways, the Exity, he of Friday Night Gaming, my buddy, tried Doom 3, and like you guys who get it, got motion sickness. So my question for you guys is, those of you who have it, have you tried, where they've suggested, kind of like the Cold War spies, have a little bit of arsenic every day, build up a tolerance. Have you tried incrementally, playing a little bit more each time? And if so, has it helped or not? And then I guess the other part of that is a lot of people point to the cutscenes as being the main culprit. Have you tried closing your eyes? Did that help? Did it make any difference? Was it more than just the cutscenes? Yeah, I'd like to know, because honestly, I've been messaged the extremes from mild discomfort to, wow, I had to lay on the couch for 5 hours. So it's certainly been brutal for those of you who have motion sickness. And I'll pass that on to Exity. News story, VirZoom. I talked about these guys July 10th. They're the ones that have the VR exercise bike. And at the time, I kind of joked around about the sweating and, the usual stuff that you would with anytime you've got to do hard exercise and literally have a heat-generating mask on your face. They've kept working on that, and they actually have a lot to talk about. Now, some of you have your own exercise stuff going on already. I know quite a few of you have, daily routines of Audio Shield. You get your daily audio in. That Bruce Lee trainer, the fastest fist. You guys, you're all about daily fisting. There's all kinds of different ways to incorporate VR into an exercise program. And the cardio one with those examples and more is something that's actually being used. This takes that concept a bit further. Yes, you're cycling, but there's also driving a tank, flying a helicopter, kayak paddling, race car driving, lassoing bandits on horseback, even flying a Pegasus, which is literally right out of Clash of the Titans. So there's no shortage of things offered. They do consider themselves a controller first and foremost, albeit a heavy one. 40 pounds. They use a USB dongle. It's wireless. And like I said, you can use the bike as a controller for other games and applications as well. How practical that would be, I don't know. It seems like it'd be a bit unwieldy, but I guess it would all depend on the application. Next up, Upload VR asks, does VR gaming have a multiplayer problem? My answer to that would be no. Plain and simple. And I've talked about this before. If you look at VR similar to how you would look at an average console launch, there's no more or less games represented for VR than there were for those. There's a steady trickle of co-op and multiplayer, which is to say few and far in between, but they're there. That's kind of how it works usually with consoles. Now, the Wii was a completely different animal. And granted on that, you had Wii Play, senior centers, you had entire groups, and it was special in that way, and it was unique. But it was definitely not the rule. It was most certainly the exception. So my answer to that would be no. I do not believe there's a problem. In fact, I think there's all kinds of opportunity for multiplayer in VR. This next one will be of interest to those of you contemplating a PlayStation 4 Pro upgrade. I've talked about this before, and I've said, look, based on what I'm reading out there and what people have said, there's not a huge difference. If you're looking specifically for VR, right, to improve your VR experience. There was an article on Eurogamer.net with pictures that goes into that in quite a bit more detail, so I thought I'd talk about it. There are some pictures that I'm going to throw up. And if you take a look at the first picture that I'm going to put up right now, there are two sides to the picture. On the left, you've got Drive Club VR in VR. On the right-hand side, you've got Drive Club VR on a Pro. On a regular. So they're both regular. Left is VR, right is non-VR. On the right-hand side, it should be readily apparent you've got way more colors, way more plants, trees, textures. Almost everything about the picture on the right says there's way more going on the stock PS4 than there is on VR on a stock PS4. Most of that has to do with having to hit that 90 frame per second target. Despite, what the devs want to do, that is always their overriding objective. Try to hit 90 frames per second. If they don't, they sacrifice. And you can see clearly in this picture what was sacrificed to make sure that they hit 90 frames per second. I'm going to put up another picture now. Take a look at this one. One is VR on the regular PS4 on the left. The other is VR on a PS4 Pro on the right. And if you're thinking they look virtually indistinguishable, exactly, that's the point. They do. There's not much difference here. In fact, where there are differences, you're almost never going to encounter them, especially in Drive Club VR. Putting up another picture right now. Again, two circles. Left-hand side is the regular PlayStation in VR. Right-hand side, PlayStation 4 Pro. What we're looking for in the circle is reflections on the rooftop. On the left, there's none. On the right, there's reflections, but only when you pass underneath an overpass or underneath a cherry tree. And I think there's a third tree or some sort. But yeah, that's it. Now, are you ever even going to use this view in VR would be the big question, because most people are going to use cockpit view. You're not going to use the over-the-shoulder view. And if that's the case for you, this is totally a moot point, and you've got no benefit from that at all. To kind of further illustrate this, let's look at Journey. Okay? Again, two circles here. Left is VR regular PS4. Right is VR on a PS4 Pro. The difference here, the density of the foliage. So there's denser plants, trees, bushes on the PS4 Pro than there is on the standard PS4. Are you going to notice that during the course of play? If we're being honest, my gut instinct would say no. You're spinning around, you're walking, you're concerned with the objectives. You're not going to notice slightly denser or less dense foliage. At least I wouldn't. Next picture, this again, Journey. There's two. Left-hand side is, again, the regular PS4. The right is the Pro again, both on VR. If you're looking at this and struggling to see, absolutely. And again, that's the point. The difference here in this picture is foveated rendering. So on the right-hand side, it's a slightly larger circle than on the left. Foveated rendering, if you're new to these videos, you haven't seen my past videos, on the PlayStation, well, in foveated rendering in general, there's a small circle which is around the center of whatever you're looking at. That's where all the detail is on your view. Outside of that circle, towards the edge of the screen, the picture gets progressively blurrier and less detailed. That means that the GPU, your graphic card, doesn't have to work as hard as it would if it had to draw the whole screen equally, because it only has to worry about the circle. Well, here on the PS4 Pro, that circle is larger. That's it. Again, one of those things. Would you notice that? One more picture of Journey again this time. This one has to do with dynamic lighting, which is another difference and something that's offered by the PlayStation 4 Pro. So again, left is regular PlayStation, right is Pro, both VR. No dynamic lighting on the left, dynamic lighting on the right. Again, that's so localized. Is this something you would notice during gameplay? Again, I would say probably not. So I'm going to sum this up by saying, look, my recommendation, those of you who've asked me this question, stands. If you don't have a PlayStation, but you want to get a PlayStation VR, go directly for the Pro. If you already have a PlayStation 4, just get the VR kit. Do not upgrade at this point. Maybe in the future when the games are built from the ground up to take both Pro and VR into account, are we going to get, more bang for the buck. But right now you've seen the features that you get with Pro, and they're not mighty features, right? The other difference, and it didn't really come across in the pictures, but I'm going to mention as part of the summary, is some had slightly higher resolution. In other words, on the Pro, it was slightly higher. Is it, again, something you would notice? I would say no, because the differences in resolution are not on the order of like going from 720p to 1080. It's like going 960 to 1080. Not as noticeable. All right, next news story. Tesla hires Microsoft HoloLens senior designer Andrew Kim. Now, he was born in Seoul, raised in Vancouver, in my city here. He's worked several places. He's worked for Google. He actually worked on the Xbox One once upon a time, then went the Google route. Cisco did the HoloLens, and now he's working for Tesla. So he's kind of come full circle and ended up finally in a new place, which is Tesla. The question is, what will he be doing there? And there's all kinds of possibilities, but the main two obvious ones are augmented reality and VR, because he's worked on both when he was at Microsoft, mostly on augmented. The opportunities there, look, most of the new cars that are out, they've got navigation units. You've got back cameras for backing up. You've got cameras for, depending on, opposite side turning from where your steering wheel is. There's all kinds of room for augmented reality there. But it's likely going to be in areas we can't even imagine right now, because that's part of the reason why he got hired. So he'll be coming up with suggestions, I'm sure, and technologies, and we'll see the fruits of that probably within the next 5 years. So it'll be very interesting. Next up, Samsung and their VR involvement in the 2018 Winter Olympics. So they say that they're going to heavily utilize virtual reality, not just for spectators, athletes, broadcasting. There's going to be VR, and it's going to be very integral to the whole package. This according to Samsung. Now, 2018 is actually scary close. We got, a year away, really, from those Winter Olympics. So that'll be interesting to see how that unfolds. Next up, yet another example of the focus that China is putting on VR. There's going to be a massive trade show March 8th through 11th in 2017, take place at the China Import and Export Complex. 20,000 square meters, more than 1,000 booths for suppliers, purchasers of VR technology. And statistically, and this is kind of neat, but like I always say, take these with a grain of salt, 68.5% of China is interested in VR, more than 286 million potential users of VR. Think about that. That's almost the population of the US, potential VR users. That's huge. And then the last story, guys, this one is a bit of a facepalm moment. And I mentioned this a few days ago. I said, look, they are going to come after VR just like they did against Dungeons and Dragons, video games. It's a cycle, whether it's Tipper Gore or somebody else, taking the baton to pursue whatever the newest thing is. Here's an example of it happening, okay? Google is trying to, in UK schools, put VR units. So they've got 1 million units that they want to dispense to introduce kids to virtual reality and have that become, supplemental to their learning. So new, innovative content and techniques via these VR units. Well, here's what the critics had to say. Critics warned last night that such gimmicks were dangerous, and children would later pester their parents to buy the more expensive leisure version. The danger is that they will bully their parents into buying more expensive versions for Christmas. Although superficially attractive as a teaching device, they cannot replace the hard graft of actually getting the children to learn subjects. First of all, they're not trying to replace anything. This is supplemental. How hard is that concept to get? Supplemental. And the bullying part? Who's the frickin' parent? There's not a chance in hell my daughter would be telling me what I'm buying her. That does not compute. And for most parents, that does not compute. That's BS. And definitely schlock worthy and a pissoir to boot. And now I'm going to calm down because it is Saturday night, guys. And I apologize. I am super late with this video. Whatever's left of this, it's probably Sunday where you guys are watching this. I hope you guys have a good one. Get my beer. As always, cheers. Definitely catch you guys on the VR flip side.